All right, Randhir, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Firstly, I just want to say thanks for coming on board. It really means a lot to us that you're doing this. So thank you, man. Appreciate it.
No worries at all.
Personally, I grew up listening to hip hop and R&B. You know, the likes of Dr. Dre, Biggie, Tupac, Snoop Dogg, NWA, Eazy-E. However, you were one of the first artists I heard and saw from Sri Lanka that was really putting it down in terms of bars, delivery, and cadence. So thank you, man, for your contribution to hip hop. What are your biggest influences
Um,
when it comes to hip hop?
yeah, so I grew up in a lot of early 90s, mid 90s hip hop music myself. So began with a lot of West Coast hip hop. So NWA, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Pac. Also had a liking for the East Coast sound as well. So Nas, Jigga. Yeah, so I'm from that generation where rap music was very poetic, very socially conscious, and yeah, had a bit more substance, I guess. So yeah.
Would it be safe to say that the song Lions and Tigers, that the sound and the meaning behind that song came from those influences?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So back then, if you were a hip hop artist, you really looked for inspiration from your surroundings, from your background, from your culture. So a lot of the early stuff that I did with Brown Boogie Nation was actually very motivated by what was going on in the country at the time. So there was a lot of socio-political themes in the music. The Lions and Tigers is an example of that.
So you're on tour at the moment, but you actually have just released a new album, and you have a new music video that's about to come out on Thursday in a week.
Friday,
or so.
tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it is touring and having that weighing over your head?
Oh yeah, so I'll just give you a bit of background on the album. So I came into the music industry as a hip hop artist, but then later on when I moved back to Sri Lanka, found myself singing because I think you kind of have to be a singer in Sri Lanka to succeed. But having said that, there's a lot of good hip hop talent which was very underrepresented. So the whole point of this album was to basically create a platform for Sri Lankan hip hop music and just give those artists a slightly bigger voice, a louder voice. So one of the problems I found was, I mean, if you're going to make a living in this industry, you have to pretty much be booked. You have to play live, all right? And in Sri Lanka, how it works is there's this collection of about 10 to 15 artists that just rotate across all the concerts in the country, and there's not one of them that's a hip hop artist. So I just wanted to bring a bit of equity, a bit of brand equity to Sri Lankan hip hop, and that was pretty much the whole point of this album. So the album is about 24 feature artists, and I've worked with a couple of producers. There's me as well. I don't rap a lot on the album. I sing most of the hooks, but the feature artists take on most of the bars, and it's fantastic. So the name of the album is Sangrama, which in English translates to the word revolution, upheaval, right? So it's on Spotify at the moment. It's been about 3 weeks since I released it. And the first music video from the album actually releases this Friday, which is a song called The Gassy, which is a little Afrobeat inspired, right? And I've got a guest artist on it, a feature artist on it as well, with me singing most of the hooks and stuff.
For the audience that knows you as a singer, can you tell us a little bit about Brown Boogie Nation? Who was in the group? How did it form? What's the story?
So Brown Boogie Nation was one of the pioneering hip-hop groups in Sri Lanka, right? Alongside Rookie D and his outfit called Rude Boy Republic. So Rookie D was actually the first, Rookie D and Rude Boy Republic were the first hip-hop group in the country, all right? They were followed up by us, all right? And we were the first to actually get radio airplay in Sri Lanka, the first hip-hop group to get radio airplay. Plus, we were the first to release a music video. So we got together, just a bunch of friends with mutual interest in hip-hop music. And it just so happened that all of us could write lyrics and rap. And we just tried, we just experimented and put mixtapes together. So back in the day, things weren't as developed as they are now. It was very hard to very hard to find production producers and so on. So we used to just basically take the whole mixtape approach, steal an instrumental from a song, just rap over it as you do. Yeah, that's pretty much how it came together. So we had a good run, about a good 2 or 3 years. After which I think everybody, a couple of members of the band just moved on to other things, and I started to work with BNS. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that you use instrumentals from other songs, but I did hear some originals. Where do they come from? Who made those?
Well, when you say original, the music is not. The music is pretty much an instrumental from somewhere. So we've used instrumentals from Ice-T. So Lions and Tigers is actually an Ice-T track. It's an Ice-T instrumental, right? Yeah. Ice-T, Ice Cube. Actually, no, you're right. We had a song, Grammys and Oscars, which was actually composed by a guy called Paul Murray, who was actually Nimal Mendes, the guy who wrote and composed Master Sir, which BNS would later remake. His son, that's his son. Yeah.
What was the DJ scene like back then in Sri Lanka? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well,
have you ever been
back in the day, well, I'm not a DJ myself, but I've worked with a lot of DJs. So back in the day, it was mostly a lot of DJs playing a lot of current hits, This was the mid-90s, a lot of current hits. There was the odd DJ that would specialize in a genre, so maybe hip-hop music, all right? And among those few, there would be even fewer who would play off turntables, do a bit of turntablism, know how to scratch, beat, juggle, and so on. So the mid-90s was pretty much just when hip-hop was like in its, fledgling stages, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I saw you guys did an interview maybe 8 years ago, on a Sri Lankan radio station, and there were talks about the group potentially doing another track.
Yeah.
Did anything ever amount from that?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that phone call. No, it's just that everyone, like I said, man, everyone's very busy doing what they're doing. So yeah. Eventually, hopefully someday, yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. What was the transition like going from a rap artist, a really good rap artist, someone that could actually properly rap, to becoming an R&B sensation instantly? What was that like?
Well, there was a lot of luck, to be honest. I recorded my first song, and I just had a bit of luck with that, I guess. Everything just fell into place, the lyrics, the melody, the production, all of that.
What was that first song?
Namal Mitak was the first song that I ever sang in Sinhalese. That was a song that pretty much launched my career as a singer in Sri Lanka. So, yeah, I always liked R&B. I could always sing, because even in Brown Boogie Nation, I was the singer. I sang the hooks, all right? So, and while I loved rap music, I always found singing a lot more challenging, and there's a lot more you can do with it. So it's a lot more complex. So I was a little more drawn to it, I guess. And yeah, ever since then, it's pretty much defined my music career.
I saw you mention that you listen to a lot of R&B. What are some R&B artists that you like?
Well, being a 90s kid, I grew up listening to Boyz II Men, Babyface, Brian McKnight, that whole lot. Come over to the modern day, I like Breezy, Tory Lanez, yeah, Bryson Tiller, yep.
Cool. When did BNS come along, and how did that all happen?
So BNS came along towards the early 2000s, late 90s. It's quite a funny story, actually, because Bhatia had this idea to remix an old Sri Lankan theatre song. And he actually spoke to another guy in Brown Boogie Nation first to feature on it. But that guy turned it down, so that opportunity came to me. And the rest is history, as they say. So we recorded the remix to Sirisanga Bodhi, I think, towards the end of 1999. And by the early 2000s, that song was pretty much everywhere. It was a Sinhalese song, but it was so popular that even English radio was playing it. Yeah, that's how popular it was. Because it was, I think, it was a proper crossover track. It was a proper fusion track. You know, you've got the Sinhalese melodies, but with hip hop production and a rap artist in it. So it kind of had that international formula. So that kind of, I think, cemented my relationship with BNS, and we've pretty much just worked together ever since. Yeah.
You studied in New Zealand?
I studied at Royal College, Colombo 7, then moved to New Zealand after my A-levels. I had a gap year during which I worked with BNS, just spent a lot of time doing gigs and touring and stuff. Then went to university in New Zealand, so graduated, hung around for a bit. So I majored in media and communications, wound up working in web development, go figure. Worked for a couple of years, jumped through the whole immigration hoops of getting PR, getting your citizenship, your passport, all that. And once everything was done and dusted, just moved back to Sri Lanka, and here we are.
So NZ's a second home.
It is a second home.
Cool. How has it been touring with BNS and 242 so far in Australia?
Oh, it's been good. I mean, I've toured with them before. I've toured with 242 a couple of times, BNS a number of times. It's been a bit hectic. It gets very hectic when there's back-to-back gigs on weekends and back-to-back flights. But other than that, it is what it is, man. I mean, this is touring. Yeah, it is hectic.
Do you ever just come back to Australia or New Zealand just to
For a holiday?
Yeah, just to hang out?
No, I've never done that. I've always been around work.
Always working.
Yeah.
I've seen you mention that you're a bit of a recluse. You like to be private. What's it then like stepping onto a stage in front of thousands of people?
Well, I guess when you're on stage, when the lights hit your face, I guess you become a different person. You know, the stage is the office. I'm working now, you know? So that, you know, the side of you that's a performer, that switches on. And yeah, you just go with it, basically. Yeah. It's quite funny because I hate loud music and I hate crowds. So occupation, musician, yeah.
Did you ever experience any sort of resistance from the ones around you? For example, when I told people that I was a DJ, especially uncles and aunties, the follow-up question was, so what else are you doing? What are you studying at uni? And then I always gave them the answer, you know, engineering, and then I had the tick of approval. And it was always followed up by, yeah, you know, because you can't do DJing full-time, right? Did you ever experience anything like that? Any sort of resistance?
Yeah, all the time. I mean...
Discouragement?
Oh, yeah. It's a South Asian thing, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Well, I went to war with my parents over the music career, but I ended up meeting them halfway. So they're like, just graduate, go to uni, get an education. After that, whatever. So here I am. And I guess that advice has served me well. So alongside being a musician, I run a couple of companies in advertising and tech as well. So I've got that going for me as well. So yeah, all good. But what I also find is if you ever, say if you want to be a musician or a performer or whatever, if you in the back of your head, if you treat that as if you've already accepted the fact, if you're even thinking that could not work out, the chances are it won't work out. Because you need to go into it with a lot of conviction, right? So I see a lot of people thinking about, oh, well, what about plan B, right? And it's okay to have plan B, but you need to work on plan A first. And you need to be fully committed to plan A. You need to take that plunge, right? Because if that's in your subconscious mind, what I find is that if you believe that this could fail, the chances are it will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it like that for you?
It pretty much was. There have been times when, you know, being a musician has been tested, like we've been tested, like the last 2 years, 2020 to 2021. It was COVID, and like the entertainment industry was pretty much shattered, right? And there was a lot of people who pretty much abandoned their profession, but we didn't. We stuck by it. So times are not always going to be easy, but you just have to understand that's the nature of things. Yeah.
What can you tell us is different about this tour, this 2023 BNS show? What do you have to say to people that may be sitting on the fence about buying tickets to the show?
Well, all I have to say is basically we've got 3 shows left. The previous 6 or 7 have been sold out. And the crowds have had an amazing time. It's been an absolute pleasure performing to them. So if you're on the fence, I'd say just get off the fence, buy a ticket, and come have a look. Yeah, because all the states before you guys had a fantastic time. So yeah.
Have you noticed any difference in the crowd over the years? Because you have toured Australia before. Is it changing? Is the concert style changing?
The concert style is pretty much the same. It's still very high energy.
Yeah.
But the crowds are starting to look. There's a cross section of people. So you've got the hardcore day one fans, along with a slightly younger end of fans as well, and that's nice to see. Yeah.
Cool. We'll wrap it up there, Randhir. Thank you so much for jumping on this interview with us. We really, really appreciate it, and all the best for the rest of the tour.
Thank you for having me.